What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on nootropics, on energy, on testosterone, and on a lot of other stuff. Thanks so much for being with me. Let's talk about the best nootropic, or possibly the best nootropic ever. I guess I want to start by saying we judge a nootropic to be high echelon if it is multifaceted. We judge it by its versatility, right? How many things it has the ability to do, and its sort of sheer number of impressive aspects, okay? So going into that, I really want to pose the question and then kind of go into everything that this compound does of, is phenylpiracetam the best nootropic ever? We're going to discuss that. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break everything that's happening on the pharmacological side, the anecdotal side, the mechanism side, the effects side, what people write about it, what people say about it, and just let's kind of just ponder the question, is phenylpiracetam the best nootropic that is out there? I mean, like, you go through Reddit and look for anecdotals on phenylpiracetam, it's like they're everywhere. Why isn't phenylpiracetam more popular? Phenylpiracetam is a godsend. God. Phenylpiracetam, game changer for me after 6 months of use. And plenty more anecdotals. I mean, if you just Google like phenylpiracetam Reddit experiences, or you're a part of Nootropics 2.0 on Facebook, or you're a part of the regular Nootropics group on Facebook, and you just search phenylpiracetam and people's experiences, the disproportionate majority of experiences are going to be positive. Phenylpiracetam registered the most in my users on a survey of what improved their mood the most. Let's just discuss quickly my personal anecdotals on phenylpiracetam. Number one, it is the modafinil of racetams, right? There's really no other compound out there besides perhaps uridine that kind of feels like the modafinil of, right? I mean, but there is certainly no other racetam that feels like phenylpiracetam does in comparison to something like modafinil. It almost always works well to rescue me from bad sleep. Now, I've talked about this before, and oxiracetam is a pretty good strategy for that. It's usually the go-to because I need functionality, I need energy, I need stimulation, I need focus, I need my brain to just generally process better. But phenylpiracetam does it as well. Not so much on the processing side, but more the amp me up, wake me up, get me energized, get me out of that funk where I feel like a dullard, you know, because I didn't sleep well. I love that word, dullard. That's great. You fucking dullard. Dullard. It doubles as a pre-workout. You know, recently we did a video where we discussed pre-workout nootropics, and phenylpiracetam was obviously in that video because it just does. I mean, taking it by itself with a choline source, with some teacrine, with some bromontane, whatever your stack ends up being, like phenylpiracetam as the base will give you a hell of a lot of energy and be great as a pre-workout. It motivates people to do things. It motivates me to do stuff. It puts me in a place where if I'm looking at something that I should do this, or I have to do this, but I don't want to do it, or I'm not motivated to do it, phenylpiracetam pretty much changes that state and puts me in a place where it's a lot easier for me to go and execute on that thing. It improves my working memory, right? I have a lot of stuff to do throughout the day, and I require my brain, aside from lists, to remember certain things, especially when I'm actively engaged in certain tasks, and I need my brain to be, functional in terms of working memory. Phenylpiracetam helps that happen. Let's take Psychonaut's explanation of it. So Psychonaut has its effects listed as analysis enhancement, wakefulness, mindfulness, anxiety suppression, thought connectivity, focus enhancement, motivation enhancement, memory enhancement, dream potentiation. That's doing a lot of things. As you're going to see as we get further into the mechanisms of phenylpiracetam and what we think it's doing, and then also what we've proven that it's doing, it makes perfect sense why it's such a powerful compound. And again, quite possibly the best out there. But you know what else is a really, really epic nootropic stack in total? Anything dopamine centered, by the way. But the Cortex stack. So let's take a quick break and just focus on the sponsor of this video. That's our stack. Pre-made stack, been on the market for 7 years. I just want you to do one thing for me. Take a break, go to livecortex.com, find the Cortex stack, you'll see it right on the homepage or on the menu, and bookmark it. Or just stay there. And when the video is over, execute a purchase of the Cortex nootropic stack. I promise you, you're gonna respond well to it. If you want that dopamine-centered, stimulant feeling, that motivated to work execution type feeling, as well as mood enhancements and energy enhancements, you've got to be buying the Cortex stack. The best way to get it, my friends, is on subscription. Get it shipped to your doorstep every 30 days. In the beginning of when we launched Cortex, it was literally being dubbed the only pre-made stack that works. Now, a lot of people like to negate the notion that pre-made stacks can be useful. Dude, it's convenient as hell. If you need to take a couple capsules and you're in a pinch, boom, take it, right? Otherwise, instead of weighing stuff out for 2 or 3 days of your week with your stacks, you just take the Cortex stack. It's so much easier. It gives your brain that energy and the motivation and the stimulated, motivated drive to get stuff done. LiveCortex.com, go get a bottle of Cortex. All right, back to phenylpiracetam. Phenylpiracetam has some interesting properties in research, not the least of which are phenylpiracetam reverses the depressant effects of the benzodiazepine diazepam. Phenylpiracetam increases operant behavior. Phenylpiracetam inhibits post-rational nystagmus. I don't even know what that is. I definitely don't know what that is. Nystagmus. It sounds like a Viking from the ancient times. Nystagmus! Or the Viking's kid. Come here, little nystagmus. Prevents retrograde amnesia and has anticonvulsant properties, okay? So let's take a look at why all of this is happening and go into some mechanisms. But first, I actually want to talk about potential mechanisms. So Self-Decode has some pretty interesting theories expanding upon some possible mechanisms of action. And they actually have this kind of little disclosure or caveat statement or something that just sort of says the following. Although the exact mechanisms of phenylpiracetam are currently unclear, some possible mechanisms have been identified by some early studies. Some of these potential mechanisms include increasing the number of serotonin, dopamine, and GABA receptors in the brain, which could in theory make it useful for improving mood and reducing anxiety. Number 2, inhibiting dopamine reuptake transporters. Now this is something that I believe has been proven at this point, so it's really not speculation, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Number 3, activates and increases the number of nicotinic acetylcholine and NMDA receptors in the brain. Number 4, increases levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Number 5, selectively reduces the activation of brain cells that control movement. And they're hypothesizing that this is why it has application in decreasing seizures. And then lastly, Self-Decode thinks that it has the potential to increase alpha and beta wave activity throughout the brain. So is all of that stuff happening? Is it increasing BDNF? Possibly, right? There are some studies that suggest this is happening, but we don't know for sure. What we do know about phenylpiracetam are its known mechanisms of action. The first of which, and the primary of which, is that it is a cholinergic agonist. It is a choline receptor agonist, and it agonizes specifically the A4B2 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. So the A4B2 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors are expressed in the midbrain dopamine pathways, known to be involved in drug reward, mood disorders, stress, movement generation, and learning. So that's its primary mechanism of action, agonizing those cholinergic receptors. Its secondary mechanism of action, and this is from what we know and me putting this together, is that it's a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. So basically what it's doing is it's preventing the DAT, the dopamine transporter, from clearing dopamine from the synaptic usable space for the acute period of time that phenylpiracetam is affecting you. You know, the DAT is the dopamine transporter, and its job is to take dopamine, clear it from the synaptic space, set it aside for later in the releasable pool, recycle it, and then allow it to be dispersed later on for later use. If you inhibit the DAT, even at a mild level or for a brief period of time, then you just get an accumulation of dopamine. That's essentially what dopamine reuptake inhibition is. Anecdotals on the web have phenylpiracetam being effective at as low as 50 milligrams. People have it being effective at 75 milligrams, 100 milligrams, 125 milligrams, 150, 175, 200 milligrams, 225 milligrams, 250 milligrams. It's literally effective for certain people in all of the major doses. Most folks do not go above 250 milligrams. You really won't need to. So I guess I want to leave you with a question, and I would like you guys to comment in the comment section about your experience with phenylpiracetam and whether or not in this scope of the best nootropics there are, like up there with the afanyls, up there with uridine, you know, up there with bromontane, up there with 9-MEBC, Is phenylpiracetam in that category? Should it be considered one of the best nootropics out there? I believe it is. And don't let that, change your results. Like my bias on it, like I like phenylpiracetam. It's pretty awesome. But if you don't think that it deserves a spot in the high echelons of the best nootropics, tell me so, man. I ain't gonna be mad at you. The best nootropics course that teaches you how to use phenylpiracetam, because it isn't just about dosing and throwing down a choline source. It's like, how do you even know which choline source to take and at what dose? How do you know what to stack it with? If you really want to understand some of the deeper nuances of how to use phenylpiracetam in a very surgical way, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a professional, or as a nootropics enthusiast, the highest level course on phenylpiracetam is Nootropics God course. So that's a course that really explains how to use nootropics from the perspective of the 10 to 15 year mark. That is a video course that I wrote and filmed and created. It is epically powerful. It is stack ridden and has a lot of use cases for phenylpiracetam in it. So go get that thing at livecortex.com. You will be happy that you did. This video has been brought to you by the Cortex Nootropic Stack. That is our nootropic stack. I mean, talk about a dopamine-centered stack. That's why phenylpiracetam is so effective. I mean, aside from its cholinergic agonist properties, it's that usable dopamine that you have in the mix that puts you to work, makes you motivated to do things. It puts you in a place where the brain is just functioning really awesomely. That is what the Cortex stack does. That is what it was built for. I mean, we've got uridine and CDP-choline in there working in a very particular way. And not at doses that are even super high. People are always very surprised when looking at the doses of the ingredients in Cortex. We just have an amazing synergy across the board. It's a stack that I created, by the way, to be an alternative for the Affinils. And this was, again, 7 or 8 years ago when I was like in my somewhat early days running my previous business. I built Cortex. I was taking it myself. Didn't even think to make a commercial stack. And then I was like, wait a minute, this has to be a commercial stack. This is so powerful. It is one of my go-tos. It was one of my early go-tos, and I put it in a stack. It's called Cortex. Get it at livecortex.com. 7 years on the market. Epic pre-made nootropic stack. If you use the coupon code 15 now, coupon code 15 now, you will save 15% off either your first bottle or your first month. I suggest you get Cortex monthly because having it shipped for cheap monthly to your doorstep is an exceptional way to use the stack. You should be cycling it 4 days on, 3 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off, and that will give you a month's supply with the amount of capsules that are in a bottle of Cortex. Again, use the coupon code 15 now if you want to save on your first bottle of Cortex, your next bottle of Cortex, or your first month of the Cortex Nootropic Stack. Go get some at livecortex.com and go get yourself the Nootropics God course. Plenty of other nootropics courses that have phenylpiracetam stacks in them, as well as testosterone products, and you guys know the whole lot. Male performance enhancement at its peak. livecortex.com. That is what we are about, my friends. Thanks so much for being with me. Talk to you next time.